As you start to think about your trifold brochure, you might be in need of some inspiration. So I often recommend going to good old Google and searching for images. And here I've done so with trifold brochures. This is a very common brochure format, and this is what an image search returned to me. And you can get some great ideas for layout from downloading and looking at any of these. You know, as a student, you're certainly welcome to take ideas from other pieces and run with them and adapt them for your own use. It really isn't considered stealing, and unless you were to sell it, of course. However, go ahead and take a few ideas and maybe even combine them together, because you'll get something original and you'll have some great ideas to work with. For instance, the beautiful teal blue swoosh on this brochure here kind of looks like a wave, and since you're doing a brochure for a kayaking company, how about doing something like this? It would break up your page nicely and create a good looking flow, and you would create that probably in Illustrator using vectors and then save it as an image and bring it into InDesign as a placed image. So that's one idea you can run with, and there are obviously thousands out there, so you shouldn't really ever be at a loss for inspiration. So you're going to be creating a trifold brochure, sometimes called a threefold, and this is a simple sketch of what your piece will look like. You've seen these many times. They're extremely common and they're very handy and very easy to create. Because of the way they're folded, you'll want to make sure to set up your InDesign pages, your InDesign file correctly. So I'm going to go through how to set up your file so that when you print it out, if you were to print it out, it would fold correctly and be accurate. So we're going to hop into InDesign right now, and I've created a page already that is set up in the way that you need it to be. Okay, but I'm going to make a new file here to show you how that's done. So in InDesign, you would go File, New, Document, or Command N on a PC, or I'm sorry, Command N on a Mac, or Control N on a PC. So this is the important new document window, and what you do wants to match this exactly to set up your page correctly. You want to have two pages on your file, and you don't need facing pages because that's for a larger document with more pages like a magazine that would need to see spreads next to one another. You don't need that here. We're going to start at page 1. The page size is going to be the standard letter sized, 8.5 by 11. However, we want it to be in a landscape orientation, which is horizontal. Vertical is a portrait. If I click on the landscape orientation button, you'll see that the width and the height now change to reflect the correct proportion. So this is all set up. We do want to have 3 columns. This is going to be a 3-column, threefold brochure. InDesign will set up 3 equally sized columns, and the gutter is the space in between each column. We're going to leave that at the default here. This is a little less than 1/4 of an inch, and that's fine for our purposes here. We can also leave the margins the way they are. This is a 1/2 inch all around. By the way, you want to make sure that in your InDesign preferences you set your units and increments to the inches so that you have inches showing up here. And again, that's in InDesign preferences. If you want to change your margins, you can deselect the same icon, the chain here, and you can set these individually, but we're going to leave them as is for now. Now, if you're not seeing the bleed and slug information, click on the little triangle and this will come down. A bleed is an area outside the printable page where you can set imagery or anything that you want to literally print right to the edge or bleed off the edge. We are going to set an area of 1/8 of an inch, 0.125, and we're going to set it all around the 4 sides, which will give us the option, if we want, to bleed images off the edge. So I put my 1/8 of an inch in here, and then I click on this icon to set it on all 4 sides. Okay. The slug is an area that we're not going to use here, but if you wanted to set an area for yourself that wouldn't print, that you could write notes to yourself on or notes to the printer, you could do it in that area. We're not going to use it here. So when I click OK, I get a page that looks very much like the one you just saw. Okay, but I made the page here to show you something very important. In a trifold brochure, you have to have certain sections designated for certain things on page 1, and this is page 1 of the 2-page InDesign document. This is very important. This column here on the right should be your front cover, and this column in the center is your back cover, and the inner flap or the inner page on the front, on the first page of your InDesign document, is your inner flap or inner page on the left. This is a little bit unusual here, but it has to be set up this way so that when you print it out and fold it, it comes out correctly. Now, you don't have to label your own file this way, but you might want to make a note of how these are laid out so that you put your front cover information in the right place on page 1. Now, page 2 is different. It's much more straightforward because that's the inside of your brochure, and the columns are more logical. Okay, this goes in a more standard way, but the important one to remember is this one right here. Okay. So we've set up our file. Oh, there's one thing I want to go over here for you, and that is called display performance. You want to make sure in your view menu. Now, this is something, actually, it is optional, but it's something that I want to talk about for a minute. A lot of students have gotten upset when they've been working on InDesign files because when they bring in their pictures, they come through really pixelated and they don't look good, even though the picture is good quality. That is because in InDesign, you have an option to set your imagery to look either low resolution for a really fast display, typical, or high quality. Most people like to work at high quality such that when you bring in your pictures, it will look more like it would if it were printed. Okay, so this can always be changed. If you have a lot of images, for instance, you might want them to load faster. You might want to check one of these lower res options. It doesn't mean the piece is going to print poorly, it's just the way it looks on the screen. It's just the display. So you might want to go to your View drop-down menu, go down to Display Performance, and ask your imagery to be high quality display. Then when you bring in pictures, they will look better. Okay, it's an easy switch. If you bring in something and it doesn't look good, just go ahead and check your display performance. Okay, I'm going to switch over to Photoshop to end here to show you one thing that you'll want to do. And here I am in Photoshop with 3 images that I want to bring in to my brochure. Okay, I'm going to talk about something called color space here, and you want to make sure that any image you bring into your kayak brochure wants to be in a CMYK color space. Okay, and that's under the image drop-down menu in a menu called Mode, and I made a screenshot of it for you. So if you were in Photoshop, if you were to go to Image Mode, you want to make sure that any image you have open on your screen for print use is set to the CMY color space. Okay, 2 of my images are, and you can see up here in the name, they are CMYK. But this one is not. This one is set to RGB, which is a screen-based color space. Perfectly fine for screen use. The colors won't print accurately, and they won't print consistently with the others unless I change this color space. So again, I need to go with this image to Image Mode CMYK Color, and it's very simple to do. And I'm going to do it right now. Okay, you do get this little warning menu. It's fine. You can don't show again if you want. Just hit OK. Once in a while the colors might shift a little bit if you change your color mode. In this case they didn't. They look about the same, but it just tells me now that I am in the right color space for my InDesign work. Now it's important that you resave this file and save it under a different name if you want to, maintain this correct color space. But just check all your images that are going to go into your brochure and make sure that they are in a CMYK color mode. So that's an overview of how to set up your brochure and how to prepare your files and make sure that everything is going to work the way you want it. Good luck!